Hi, this is the Philosophical Angle, and I am your host, Chris Angle. I'm the author of 4 books on philosophy, one of which is Defining Ethics, Good and Evil. And these books are available free for viewing at thephilosophicalAngle.com. If you'd like to contact us and make a comment on the program, give us an email at chrisangle1@gmail.com. The purpose of the philosophical angle is to examine the nature of concepts and ideas in current media. And this week we're going to discuss why the left's policies are aimed at destroying America. And perhaps I should really say that maybe they're trying to destroy America as it was founded. And so in order to do that, we really need to go back to the origin of the political parties and find out what they were at their origin. What is the origin of political parties? Where did they start? Because we have a dichotomy between the left and the right. Where does that come from? Well, I think that if we go right back to the origin of a tribe, we see that a very rudimentary society has a chieftain, and then it has its denizens. And if you go back, if we look at how society becomes more complicated, it rolls into a king and queen, and the serfs, the workers, the proletariats, and the slaves that make up society in a very rudimentary society. Back in the Middle Ages, you came up, or even earlier, you had kings and queens, and you had the workers. But eventually, it becomes a little bit more sophisticated. Society rolls on and becomes developed, and you get the kings and queens, and then they develop a class of nobles, and then you have the workers and the proletariats and the slaves, and so it really comes down to the essence of the king and queen, which has everything of society, and so we'll call those that segment of society the haves, and then you have the have-nots, which are the proletariats, the workers, the slaves, the serfs. And the serfs, like all life, seeks that which is good for it, and that is the first dictum of life. Life seeks that which is good for it and continually seeks that which is good for it. And when these individuals of societies strive for goodness, they're at peace with themselves and with society because they're fulfilling their objective. And these individuals, they seek the first dictum of life and economics, which is that all of life seeks that which is good for it. And in the United States, this is protected by Amendments 4, 5, 9, and 10. In addition, we can throw in Article 1, Section 10, which allows for for cooperation to happen, and the importance of cooperation because it's the sanctity of contracts. So these individuals, the serfers, the proletariats, seek first and foremost fairness and equality before the law of society, so that they may strive equally for the betterment of their lives. And that's also protected in the United States in Amendments 14, 15, and 19. Additionally, these proletariats, they seek equality before the law in pursuing the first dictum of life, as we just mentioned, which is to say that they strive for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's the essence of being a conservative here in America, and being on the right side of the political spectrum. And so that's the nature of the right, that it comes from serfs, the proletariats. And after all, that's what came to America in the first place, were just just people who had nothing. They came throughout our history. There were no kings and queens that arrived on our shore. So the left, let's take a look at the left. And these are the haves, the kings and queens, as I mentioned, and their nobles. And as modern society proliferates and gets more complicated, you can add in a facilitator group that will administer the wishes of the kings and the queens and the nobles. And in modern day democracies, the nobles and associates are replaced with government bureaucrats and corporate management, and because they are needed to control the have-nots. And by the way, control is anti-cooperation, and the haves can be controlling because they believe that the nature of the serfs is that they are inherently bad. And some of the left believe that the have-nots are bad because they are just not of the social class of the haves. And there are those of the left that are born this way, believing that people are inherently bad. And the facilitators that we mentioned, that are government employees and corporate management, they control the have-nots through motivation and through negative knowledge plus force. And examples of negative knowledge are rules and regulations and laws that prohibit people from doing certain things. An example of motivation is by giving welfare funds to people to do nothing in exchange for their vote and loyalty. And the haves will think that providing, and they think that they should provide a social network for the have-nots, and thus is born the concept of noblesse oblige, and that came about in the 1800s. After several revolutions, they decided that it's best to at least give the serfs and the slaves and the proletariats the very essence, the rudimentary living. And examples of this, what they in the 20th century came about to be the Soviet Union. That gave the proletariats a bottle of vodka, a good meal, maybe not even a good meal, a meal, and a house or an apartment, a place to live, and allowed them to at least gave them enough so that they wouldn't revolt. And then on top of that, you had a whole cadre of facilitators that kept these people under control, the workers under control, so they couldn't revolt. And but there are some who do not submit to the control, especially outside of the socialist societies that use force to keep the very bottom of society, the serfs, under control. And in the Western world and in the free world, where democracy is available, there are those that want to break out from the have-not segment of society into the have segment of the society. They will invent something, or they'll create a new job, and they start to make money, and they break out social network of serfdom. And they do this because of the first dictum of life, which we've mentioned. And it'll be thought and considered by the haves that these are non-cooperative serfs and proletariats, and that adhere to these individual rights that are offered to them in a democracy. And they'll think that these proletariats and serfs that are breaking out from their low level in society, they'll think that these are inherently bad people, and that their nature is inherently bad. And this is the thoughts that the haves have of the have-nots. That's what kings and queens and nobles and the facilitators throughout history have looked at the serfs and the bottom segment of society and not considered them well in a very good light. They've considered them bad people. And therefore there is no respect by the haves for the individual rights of the have-nots, whether they are the conformist or the non-conformist. That is, the conformist meaning they remain in the lower echelon of society as proletariats, or whether they jump out into the middle class by their own ingenuity and able to create something and be able to create a better life. In the eyes of the haves, they're inherently bad people and they need to be controlled. And negative knowledge plus force is used to control the have-nots by the haves. And this necessary control of the have-nots means that there will be economic and equal social justice of the have-nots, whereby everybody stays where they are in society, whereby everybody is equal in every way. And this is important because we go back now, we mentioned that the concept of noblesse oblige in the Soviet Union and other communist and socialist societies, everybody's equal at the bottom. They have everybody has a modicum of that which they need in order to live, and that's it. And so they're equal in every way, and that's the nobles feel that they have to give at least that rudimentary substance in order to live, and once they give that, then their obligation is complete. So because the proletariats are bad, there is no empathy for the advocate of individual rights. There's no empathy for the proletariat that wants to break out of his rudimentary society and seek that which is good for himself. And more recently, the word has become deplorable, and we've heard that in presidential elections, calling these people that want to break out of and vote for individual rights. They're known as deplorables, and this is I'm going to call this caste fascism or caste socialism, and this is commensurate with the history of the Democratic Party going all the way back to President Andrew Jackson, which finds its origins in the kings and queens and royalty. He came up a poor person, but once he got into to be part of the facilitator, and he didn't let the slaves. He didn't fight for slaves. He didn't fight for the Indians. He did not fight for the individual rights of humans. But there's a problem with this mode of the left of the haves with regards to the have-nots, and this problem is the first dictum of life. It gets in the way. Life doesn't want to be controlled because life seeks that which is good for it, and continually seeks that which is good for it. And life wants to pursue goodness for itself, its offspring, and to a lesser degree society. And for those who the have-nots with whom they want to cooperate, and they want to pursue goodness with other people to be able to produce goods and services. And life seeks goodness by making sacrifices to receive rewards. And so we make a sacrifice and we get a reward. And within society, there is as society becomes more sophisticated, the information and knowledge it accrues becomes more prevalent within the sacrifice, and you can see that in the amount of products that are available on the marketplace today compared to 100 years ago. It's all based on knowledge, and so knowledge is becoming more and more important. And therefore, as knowledge improves, so does life, and the differentiation of the creativity of the new products and services that it produces. But the leftists tend to suppress the accumulation of knowledge by its production of anti-knowledge, and they must suppress this accumulation of knowledge, and they have to do this because as knowledge accumulates, the have-nots become the haves, and the have-nots begin to become part of the nouveau riche class, and they jump out from being the serfs and the proletariats. And the have-nots will become conservative, that is, they'll seek and promote individual rights, because in the production of rewards, cooperation is needed, because we all cooperate with each other to produce goods and services, and as a result, cooperation increases, and the have-nots believe and trust in the goodness of others. And by the way, cooperation, I'm going to define cooperation, and it equals knowledge of the efficiency of combining your sacrifice with others to produce goods and services. And so when we know that when we cooperate with somebody else, we know we do it because we can see that we're going to produce more goodness with them than without them. And cooperation is possible by the effusion of respect. And the appropriate dispensation of respect is the essence of all that is ethical. It's the essence of ethics. And we respect others in order to cooperate, and we cooperate in order to produce goods and services, which brings us up away from misery, which is the nature of all that is good, and it is good is what we seek, and seek on a continual basis. Therefore, this increasing amount of cooperation produces greater goodness in the conservative base. And therefore, the Democratic Party does not grow naturally when knowledge is being increased in society. And so, therefore, the Democratic Party seeks to employ policies to counter the increase in knowledge. And therefore, it searches for new sources of voters with lesser degrees of accumulated knowledge, which will make the voters, these new voters, susceptible to a system of creating caste socialism, and currently keeping their base constituent voters under control to work for the haves, to pay and work and pay taxes, and or receive welfare and to receive the basic necessities in life, and for that they'll vote for the Democrats. And so other policies that the Democrats might employ are that they'll raise taxes. And this is key to controlling the serf class and not allowing them to jump out into becoming the nouveau riche class. Another thing that they might do would be to attempt to control healthcare. And they'll do this so the deplorables will be beholden to the government. And it'll make the voters feel obligated to vote for the Socialist Democrats for taking care of them, for taking care of the deplorables. And so we can predict that in the future they'll attempt to control the alcohol and food industries next, after they control healthcare, so that you'll be further obligated to the government to vote for the haves, for the Democrats, just like in the Soviet Union. And in order to be like the Soviet Union, given the chance, they'll try to interdict in the election process until they get full control of the government, and then they will never give it up. And look at Venezuela and how they did that. And thus the elections will become controlled, and just as they are controlled in all the leftist nations throughout Earth. And how do we know this? We know this empirically from history. Whenever the left gets hold of a nation, they get hold of the ballot box. And so all you have to do and look in history on that, look at Nazi Germany. They were leftists. A lot of people don't believe that they were leftists, but actually that's the meaning of the word Nazi, was the Socialist Party. Look at Pol Pot, look at Mao, look at Stalin, look at the fascists under Mussolini. Most recently, you can look at Venezuela, look at Communist China, North Korea. One could say that the right would do the same thing in controlling the ballot box, but it does not. And if it did, the founding of this country, with its constitution and amendments, would have been impossible if the right believed as does the haves. So, but it's possible because the have-nots believe that people are basically good and that all should be treated equally before the law. If you have a comment, give me a shout on an email, and subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. Thanks very much.